Hi, Mike.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Chris.
Okay, bud.
Chris, hi. Mike.
Hi, Rob.
Nate.
Hi, everyone. Isn't this fun? We get to join and talk
And,
about
and to the three people out there who are watching, hi to you too.
No,
Hi,
actually,
Mom.
there's currently 0 people.
Oh.
0 people watching.
Yeah, why don't podcasters promo their podcasts more?
Well, for me, it's because one, the real reason is laziness. I guess. The second reason would then be
Shorty heard that.
I can't even. Yeah, right. The second reason is because you guys don't let me know if you're going to be on the podcast until 2 minutes before. So what am I promoting?
Make it topical. Nobody's coming on to see any of us.
I'm sure of that.
It should be more about the topics than the people, unless you have a special guest.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I'm only here because Chris is here.
Yeah, Chris looks like he's in witness protection.
Yeah, yeah, he kind of does, doesn't he?
Very well, man.
I felt like the first time I talked to you, Chris, you had like this beautiful beach in the background, and now you have this lamp. What's up with that?
I must have forgot to put the filter on today. Sorry. Actually, go sit on the beach, but
come on, Chris.
Always good to be here.
You're on a professional podcast now. You need to start acting like it. All right.
That's right. Step up.
Yeah.
Jeez. All right. Well, hi everyone. We're here. We're gonna talk some more pool. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome. What should we start with? We got to start with Spain, right? How about?
Do we
want to talk about it? You want to talk about domination? Like Spain looked different that entire event.
Yeah, I think clearly they were, and I think a lot of people kind of predicted it that they were the team to beat right from the start. Someone was going to have to play really well to beat Spain because you got two guys who are really, firing on all cylinders individually, have played together a lot of years as a pair, had practiced a lot together, are best friends. And I think people undervalue, too many people undervalue what that means in something like the World Cup of Pool.
It certainly doesn't hurt, does it?
Yeah.
Well, Chris, what do you think?
They're just an unbelievable pairing, really. I mean, I think on the commentary they said that was the 6th time they've played together. It's kind of amazing they haven't won before.
Or been close. I don't know that they've ever made a semi.
Quarterfinal, I think they said in the commentary. But the chemistry they've got, they practice together all the time. They're like brothers. They do everything together. When you see them at tournaments, there's you very rarely see one of them on their own. So yeah, they've just got something that maybe Albin and Mario had, maybe Shane and Sky kind of have, but I'm not sure. Other than Carl and Darren, any other partnerships really had that kind of chemistry together.
The Cole brothers did.
Taiwan.
Yeah, the Cole brothers are right there. And realistically, I mean, if you look at the top 4 teams, even Singapore. I mean, that's a teacher-student relationship that's gone on for a lot of years, a lot of practice together, a lot of time together. So you look at those, top 4 teams, and you can see where it clearly made a difference.
In the partners, you can see the feed. One player feeding off the other, the success of the other player, and you really feel that from a fan's perspective watching it. You can sense that, and you get a taste for how you can spur your partner on with your good play. One person's good play makes the other person play good.
Yeah,
well, it's pretty exciting, pretty darn exciting. That one rack, I've never seen a rack so spectacular. Was the opening rack? I think it was the match before that in one of the semis with the Taipei, I think, against Spain. But didn't that end up 9-8, I believe?
No, Taipei against Spain was, I thought, 9-6, 9-4.
Oh,
one of those.
Yeah,
okay, but
it was somewhere between 1 and 8.
Started out
between 0 and
there
0
was
and 8, yeah.
There was 12 shots
9-4.
taken, and they weren't on the 2-ball yet.
Yeah,
in that 9-ball rack.
Yeah.
It was totally incredible how many safeties they played, and then on the 2-ball they played a bunch of safeties.
it's great to see that side of it, though, especially
It is.
and that, it's such a different spectacle, really, to everything else. Running racks and stuff is great.
Exactly.
The thought process behind them talking it through as well, you could hear. Fair enough, when they're talking in a foreign language, you can't really hear anything. But some of the other games with the English-speaking teams, listening to them, talk to each other, convince each other the right shot to play. It's interesting.
And I loved the commentary during that too, because that helped, even though we couldn't understand the language so much. Is the explanation of kind of what they were talking about. We as pool players, of course, know what they're talking about, but a lot of the people watching it maybe didn't exactly get it. The different choices you have to make. You want to be offensive or you want to be defensive here, and they were always going defensive. It was fun. It was really fun.
My favorite was when Germany was playing and Raleigh Williams is like, well, I think I understood that word. And I think that one was English. So I think I know what 2 of those words were. That was pretty funny. No idea what they're talking about, but he's just trying to parse it up into little segments to try to understand those little things. It's fun.
It was interesting.
The Spanish. The thing about the Spanish is they speak so fast that some guys were talking about, or it sounds like they do, right? I mean, you're listening to them converse, and you're like, man, they got their life story in during the 30-second shot clock. But
that's pretty much the Spanish language itself.
Yeah, but they knew, they knew each other. There were a lot of racks where they didn't say anything to each other, and some racks where they felt the need to discuss things a little bit more, and that was interesting to see.
Yeah, I think I guess my favorite part going into the finals, I pulled up one of those graphics, and it's missed balls. And going into the finals, Spain had missed 7 balls the entire tournament.
The whole tournament.
Singapore had missed 20 something. It was 28 or something.
At least Singapore was lucky to get through a couple of those early matches.
They were.
Yes. Singapore was very lucky to make it through Qatar. I mean, their opening match, because I mean, you want to talk about 2 people that I know that Waleed Majid he's a great player. But his partner did not look like he had any idea what was going on, and even to the point where I think Waleed by the end of the match was looking about as bad as he could possibly look to it. And still, Singapore barely snuck. I say barely. If they won 7-3, but if you watch that match, either team could have won 7-1.
Right.
Right. And what about the Swiss team? You talk about a team that you don't expect maybe at the beginning to be there at the end of the tournament. Wow, that was I didn't know who these 2 players were. Chris,
they're good too. They're a good team.
Yeah, they're a good team. They're well-known players in Europe. Both.
They are, huh?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, which team?
The Swiss team.
Swiss.
Oh, I picked them to go deep in. I picked them to go deep in those 2 matches.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Dimitri's really good. Regularly played really well. There was that one match where they broke absolute, shame monsters, and played really well and really confident. So yeah, it was good to see them make a nice run.
Oh, it was. Yeah, I enjoyed that. Not knowing them or seeing them play before. That was fun for me.
Yeah, really good group.
Yeah. So
who else stood out?
Yeah, who else stood out? I mean, to be honest with you, I thought Singapore obviously had to stand out. I mean, I know they lost in the finals, but I think you could run. I think you could ask a lot of people how deep they had Singapore going, and I don't think too many people had them past Kuwait. Certainly not past Austria afterwards. If Austria got to that point. Is Austria the biggest disappointment of the event?
Germany's got to be up there, right?
Yeah,
Germany.
Germany did win 1 match. Austria
won
1-0.
1 match, right? Those were probably the 2 biggest surprises, Germany and Austria, because both were heavily favored to get out of their bracket.
The 2 Great Britain teams.
I would say Great Britain B actually had a pretty good tournament.
They did.
Well, they did. Well, they had a good match against Great Britain A, And then
Yeah,
they
and
played
they're
South
South-
Africa, which was, that South Africa was coming off that big win over Thailand.
right.
So yeah, but they did play well in spurts. Great Britain B. It was nice to see Chris and Imran, have some fun there and play hard, and would have never guessed they were going to shut out Jason and Elliot. That was a rough start for Jason and Elliot.
Well, it put Jason into a nice little 6-month retirement. It looked like.
Yeah, their wheels came off in a hurry, didn't they? I don't think he was too pleased when that tournament ended.
Well, let me ask you guys this question: How much of Jason's hiatus is due to a 7-0 beatdown, and how much of it is due to him just actually needing the time away? What do you think?
Time away, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I'd have to say too, after all the hype about his straight pool run and that kind of stress that creates, I'd have to say, he needs the time off for sure.
Yeah, well, he's competed a lot recently, and I think the fact that his whole family was over there with him is a pretty good indicator that he wasn't going directly home after that event either way, or to another event. So I think he kind of had a hiatus planned. I think that he just wasn't. He just left a couple days earlier than he probably thought he was going to be leaving. But and it's good. You need to unwind and get away from the game. Everybody does it a little bit differently. Shane's got his fish, and the Filipinos go home and gamble, and that's.
And Nate, you go to the gym, right? Yeah,
and cuddle with cats.
And then then there's the cat cuddling. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
she's very happy to be cuddled. Okay, go back to sleep. Chris, you want to move to Morocco with me?
Morocco?
Yeah.
I don't think I'd fare very well over there. I burn in kind of April.
You'll be in the pool room all day anyway, so it won't make much difference. Nate's looking for you guys to be the Moroccan team for 2023.
One of their players is I think he says a 575 Fargo.
Yes.
And then the other one doesn't have a Fargo. So I think if we go over there, we got a chance.
Maybe. It was the lag that did it for me. I was watching it, and when he lagged, I thought, oh no. I was embarrassed for him. I felt bad for him. I was just, oh no.
I didn't see it. What did it go halfway down the table, or?
It started coming back up the table, but not very far.
Maybe he thought it was lagging to one end.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Okay, I got to go back and look at that because I didn't actually see the lag of it.
No, I didn't see it either.
The two snooker players from Thailand looked a little helpless as well.
Yeah,
I will say that they look like they were having fun with it though, and there's a difference between having fun and getting your butt kicked, and like looking miserable and getting your butt kicked. Like the Taiwanese knew what they were doing, or not the Taiwanese, the
Thai players.
The Thai players. They knew that they were a last second fill in. I'm sure they weren't preparing a bunch because they weren't expecting to get in there. And they look like they were like the guy misses that was it the 5 ball or the 7 ball into the bottom left corner, and he just like looks up and goes,
yeah,
like he's like, you just had fun with it, and I think it's it was a lot like Kelly and Allison last year. I think they were just having fun.
Kelly and Allison could really do some damage though, but the two the Thai guys they were up against it. What was interesting was after a couple of racks, they somebody must have lent them pool cues, but after a couple of racks, they put the pool cues down and pulled the snooker cues out and started playing with them.
Yeah, they did,
which is interesting.
Yeah.
But for those two guys, it's the off season for snooker. Those two guys have been paid $2,000 each or whatever just for turning up.
Yeah,
played one game, whatever. Fair play to, and they would have brought a lot of eyes to the tournament, which is great.
Oh, sure. I'll guarantee you. It's basically a free. It's basically a free vacation to London, right?
Well, I think they live in Sheffield or something anyway. So
yeah, right.
Oh, do that right.
Spitting distance.
The
ones that I felt the worst. Go
ahead. The whole event reminded me a lot of the Moscone Cup. I felt a lot of the same pressure that I felt during that, and then the partners play. That's really the only other place we see the partners playing. It's in the Moscone Cup, and that's so exciting to me. I just love that.
Mm-hmm. the guys I felt most for were the guys from New Zealand and Australia who flew 12,000 miles and turned around and went home the next day. That's a rough. That's a rough roll.
Pretty much.
What I want to know is why is Australia doesn't even have their best player on their team?
They've got a few good players out there, and they never have their best pairing together. Now, I wouldn't want to say what the best pairing is at the moment, but
the best player is pretty clearly Justin Sanchez, right?
Justin Sanchez, yeah. But then there's a couple of other pretty good players out there, and they never seem to get their best team together. We have the same thing in the English 8-ball. The World Championships in England every year. Australia never bring their strongest team. They always get 5 or 6 out of their strongest 10, but they never really get their strongest 10.
Why is
just
that?
The same thing with traveling.
They just don't want to travel that far?
I just think getting 10 people to commit to travel 3/4 of the way around the world all within the same week is kind of logistically, that's a bit of a nightmare, I think. So I think they're probably suffering from the same thing with the 9-ball. English 8-ball's getting quite a bit bigger now in Australia. So they've set up something called I can't remember, it's the Pro something series or something. So they've got kind of 8 or 10 of the best guys in Australia playing that. A couple of those guys would probably be playing the 9-ball maybe. So, a lot of stuff going on out there for them as well. So maybe a couple of distractions.
Okay. Bob, you mentioned the Mosconi Cup, and let me throw this out there. Does Alex Lely have to pick Sanchez and Alcade? If one of them gets in automatically, does he need to take the other? I mean, is that not a smart move?
I say yes. Yeah, he pretty much does. After the World Cup.
You're not saying no to Joshua is going to be in no matter what. You can't say no to him. And how can you not have the 2-time reigning MVP and Jason Shaw?
Jason Shaw. Yeah, there's 4.
So if Sanchez Ruiz gets in on points,
which we think he probably will,
which we think he probably will, would it not be really smart to have David in as well? I mean, David's close to earning it, individually as well. And you've got that advantage of them playing together. Although, they can only team up once, right?
So
there's only one doubles match they can play in together.
Okay.
So just wondered what the thoughts were on that. What do you think, Chris?
I think that if you wanted to create the best overall team chemistry and atmosphere, having David and FSR in the same team is going to be, that's half the problem solved, really. I think that would be great if they can get both of them in. Although, it's difficult.
Let's bring this into context, right? Because we think that FSR and Albin Ocean and Joshua Filler are probably going to be the 3, right? Probably.
Yes. Yeah.
So then you're coming down to you're going to end up coming down to basically 2 wild cards. Is anybody going to argue that you're not going to pick Jason with one of them?
No, I mean, I would assume Alex would. Yeah.
So
you have one spot left. Who do you pick?
Filler, right?
No, he should get in.
You're assuming Filler. Filler.
Assuming Filler and Albin.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Francisco Sanchez Ruiz.
Okay, sorry.
You assume those 3 are on points.
With the news that came out this week, which we can kind of jump into slightly here, you got a wild card. Do you want to take David or do you want to take Fedor?
I'd take David all day right now.
I don't know that I do. I think I'd take Fedor.
I don't know.
I mean, Fedor's got to do something. He's got to do
that's
something.
What I mean. He didn't get picked a year ago, and he was playing all year, right?
Well,
now you have a year where he hasn't even played.
Well, he has played, right? We know that he has played.
Yeah,
he hasn't lost a tournament in 3 months.
Okay, can Fedor play in any of the matchroom events between now and Mosconi?
It's possible.
It's speculation, but what it sounds like is that he's going to be able to potentially play the U.S. Open, possibly the European Open, and all the rest of the events the rest of the year. So the international stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Turning Stone, any other thing that it would not be impossible for him to actually go through and get into the top 10. When you're looking at Oliver Shelnacki is in 10th place right now with 15,790. I don't see a reason why he wouldn't be in the top 10, and he's only played half the season. How can you not give him a serious look?
No,
I'm sure he'll get a serious. I'm sure he would get a serious look. I just wonder, trying to think and put myself in Alex's shoes, and I'm looking at team chemistry, and I'm looking at who's played the whole year, and I'm looking at who's earned their spots, and I'm looking at things like that. It would be hard for me unless Federer goes off and wins 2 out of the 3, majors that he plays in the rest of the year.
If he wins one, I think he has to be in. If he won the U.S. Open or the European Championship, like there's no way that so you're looking at it like from like a chemistry, and I'm looking at it from Alex's viewpoint of which is the best team. And okay, so if you want the best player, nobody's going to argue that Fedor or that David is a better player than Fedor, right? But we haven't seen Fedor in action. But if they play tomorrow, race 100 and 8-ball, 9-ball, 10-ball, who here is going to take David?
Nobody.
I don't mind David there. Honestly, I think he's class. Honestly, I think he's just getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah,
not saying his high gear, Fedor's high gear might be higher, but I'm just saying I don't think anybody walks over Alcade ever at anything. I just don't see it.
You're not giving up soon. You're not giving up a lot. You're not giving up a lot in a race to 5 Mosconi.
No, I agree with that. But I also don't think that you're giving up a lot chemistry wise by picking Fedor over David. Who doesn't like Fedor, and who isn't going to be able to pair? So you're picking David because of that individual one pairing that he could play with FSR. But does David match? I mean, David's English it's good, it's fine, but it's is there going, when you're on a 30-second shot clock, that language barrier can be.
It can be, but we're not talking about, they can only get paired together once, but the team are together.
That's what I'm saying.
I know, but the team are together for an entire week.
Sure.
I think I'd imagine from playing other sports that the team side of this away from the arena is huge. It must be. We've all heard the stories about Mosconi Cup losing teams that have had terrible chemistry. And I don't think you might not be able to win it with good chemistry, but you can definitely lose it with bad chemistry.
Oh, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, are you going to get bad chemistry by having Fedor instead of David?
No.
I don't think that. No. So what you're saying is you don't see how you're giving up a lot by taking David skill-wise, and I don't see how you're giving up much chemistry by having Fedor. Every single one of those guys like the guy. Who doesn't like Fedor? Yeah. And so if you're going to pick David and FSR literally for their individual pairing and how they mesh together, they still have to play 5 more matches, and those other 5 matches. I don't think that a Fedor and FSR is going to be a significantly worse pairing than David and FSR. And then I think that you're gaining a little bit with Fedor and Jason or Josh as opposed to David. Not much, but like you said, at the end of the day, I don't think either of these two are bad options. And I think given the situation that Fedor has right now without being able to play and then going on and literally winning every single tournament against, second-tier players, but we'll see what happens when he comes back and he plays against the elite. If he snaps off the U.S. Open, I don't see how you can't have him on there.
No, I agree.
What do you guys think about the Finns' performance in the event? I was pretty impressed by their play.
I hadn't seen the other guy before, but yeah, they were good.
Mika missed that 9-ball that one game. That certainly was difficult for him. That was a pretty straight in shot on the 9. He's not going to miss that very often.
Yeah, no, it was fun to watch. I mean, I thought they paired together really well. It's fun. It's been fun the past year or so to watch Mika play strong again because he's so much fun to watch.
Oh yeah.
Yanni or what he played really well. Then you get this 14-year-old Finn that showed up at a couple of tournaments and surprised a few people. So you got a couple of young Finns up there. You pair them with Mika over the next couple of years to get some seasoning in them. And then you put the 2 young guys together. Finland could have a couple strong, could have a strong team and some strong players going forward.
Yeah.
How much fun would that be? Next, I believe Mika Immonen is 49 years old right now.
Okay.
Mike?
Could be right around there.
He's 48 or 49. I know that. How much fun would it be if Mika and the 14-year-old kid paired up next to you? They got a 50-year-old and a 15-year-old. How much fun would that be?
Wasn't a whole hell of a lot different than watching Singapore this year with a 50-year-old. And how old's Yep now?
Yeah, with Han. Yeah.
Yeah, 22, 23. But 22 is infinitely different than 15. I mean, that's like,
well, of course. But
Yeah,
still, you're talking about, pretty distant, difference age-wise. But yeah,
I think that would be fantastic. I mean, for a marketing standpoint, like how can you have anything better than a 50-year-old and a 15-year-old? That's like,
Yeah,
and they're both,
cool.
they're both playing top pool. I mean, that 15-year-old kid's he's probably giving me the 3 out right now.
I'll tell you that elder statesman of the Singapore team, although he did miss a few, he was loaded for the pressure shots. He pocketed many 9 balls that were right on the edge of, they were missable shots, and he was right there, nerves of steel. I was really impressed with his play.
Yeah, he played well.
He's a really, really, really nice guy too. At Michigan last year for the Predator stop, I went out and got dinner with Sharik Sayed, Aloysius, and him, and just went to, I think, at Applebee's or something like that, and just sat down and talked with them. They're super, super nice guys, all of them. Very humble, very down to earth. They just want to play pool and have fun. It's good people. I guess, I don't know. Is there any other storylines from the World Cup of Pool that you guys thought was interesting?
Well, I was so impressed with that final bank shot, and then of course the combination in the last rack. I mean, that was nice. I mean, you knew I pretty much figured he was going to make that, but the bank shot, the rack before that, I think, are close to there. Your entire family set of jewels are resting on the table on that shot. From one short rail to the other end of the table, in the middle of the table, back in the right-hand corner, I'm going, come on. And it reminded me of David's bank shot in that big tournament that he won. And I went, oh, how cool.
Yeah, that was good. They closed everything out with two pretty entertaining shots. The carom on the 9 was a pretty nice shot.
How long do you guys think it'll take? How long do you guys think it'll take to get a golden break as a deciding game in one of these major events?
I think they're going to change the break soon, so I think it's going to take even longer.
Do you think so?
I think so.
How are they going to change it?
9 on the spot.
Oh, the 9 on the spot. Sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Get those guys driving the cue ball to the side rail.
I don't see why they have to do that. I mean, you can talk about how easy the break is, and of course you have, to be honest, you have a lot of ball bangers that are honestly in that tournament. There's a reason I want to move to Morocco, right? There's some players that are not probably on that level, but I think the dry break percentage was, I think it was at like 15%, and it was relatively high. A lot of people. Yeah, I mean that's. What are you trying to get it to? Are you trying to get it to 50%?
Do we
60%?
have a stat on the scratching on the break? Because when the 1's on the spot, I see more scratches on the break than when the 9 is on the spot.
Yeah, because you're driving into the side rail and it comes back across to the other middle pocket, doesn't it?
Yeah, or it gets kicked in.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a harder break, right? You got to do that cut break, and you got to kind of hit it with low outside spin to get that action on the 1 ball.
Because that changes a little bit of momentum when you see these teams scratching on the break.
Well, Jason, what was it?
Jason,
Elliot won the lag, and Jason went up there and fired the cue ball right into the side pocket. Didn't get kicked in; it went straight into the heart of the side pocket.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about, I bet that really the 9-ball break is not that hard like that. You should never ever be scratching
unless you get kicked in the way you want to. If you do, that's right.
But that break is not that hard. I agree that the 9 on the spot, you should, unless you get kicked in, you can't do anything about getting kicked in. But you should not be. Your cue ball should never be going dead straight into the heart of the pocket off the rack.
No, and he's tried to.
Go ahead, Chris.
He's tried to give it. What we did see in that tournament was the marquee players, Shane, FSR, David, and Jason with that 1 break. Those types of guys. they're not trying for the medium pace break, which you can do with the one on the spot. Those guys are going for the big bang, enormous breaks, which is great to see. Jason was obviously going for that. He was going to give it as much as he could, and he's lost control. But yeah,
I thought,
we did see Shane on the break lose control with the cue ball going toward the racking end of the table on quite a few shots, rather than stopping it in the center of the table or bringing it back a little bit. That he'd lose it forward, looked like almost overpower the cue ball, the spin on the cue ball, and I saw that a few times. I was surprised by that. When Shane did it, the other players, if they do it once in a while, I didn't see it as often. With Spain, I rarely saw it. I saw that cue ball being parked right in the middle of the table with both of the Spanish players routinely.
But yeah, well, and then I guess to the changing the break thing. What was the biggest package that we saw ran?
4.
Did Singapore run 6, or did they win 6 straight? I didn't watch that match.
I know they won 5 straight, and I think ran 4.
4 break and runs.
I don't know. I didn't see any other team that topped 4 that I can think of.
Yeah.
So we're complaining like so much about like the break and how easy it is, but nobody's ever ran a set. I mean, generally speaking, you don't run more than 4 or 5.
Yeah.
It's too much of a leveler between the top players and the bottom players. That break, it's too much of a scale evener.
Isn't that what I mean? Joshua Filler, but Joshua Filler is still winning every tournament, right?
No, but and that's fair enough. But there's a whole ranking list to consider there.
Right.
There's 150 or 200 people on there. But why make the pockets tighter if you're going to make the break easier? Why try and make the game harder, but leave the break just tap them? Something's going to fly in. So I think it's just the logical way to go is to make the break harder.
I get the idea of that, but I just don't see how the break is leading to insane amounts of scoring opportunities. Like, it's not like people are breaking and running 6s and 7s regularly.
The big upsets,
they're breaking and running 2s and 3s.
I think the big upsets in the last few tournaments where that break's been used, the big massive upsets, it's break related, right?
So, well, then I got to ask you this question: Do we just want chalk all the time? What's better for the future of the game, to see big upsets or to see, a 13-year-old kid beating Sky Woodward?
That's all good, but do you need to? I think there needs to be a certain amount of that needs to be earned. It's too easy to step in and beat one of the big players with that break. I'm one of the people chasing the big players.
I want to see upsets too, but I want to see kids earn it because they've gotten a lot better and they're starting to get to this level and whatever. Not just because.
Let me ask you this: then how do you get to that level if you never have the opportunity to have a chance in a match, right? If you make it like we're already seeing Joshua Filler, Jason Shaw, and Albin Ocean, or we're seeing Joshua Filler, Shane Van Boning, and Albin Ocean basically win every single tournament, right? So obviously, why aren't they getting upset? At the end of the day, like I get the idea of what you guys are saying, but I don't see that these are bad things. Like at the end of the day, you have to have a chance to make a run in one of these tournaments, or why are you actually playing? Like, you got to be able to support yourself along the way. If you have zero chance, like if we're all 4 playing in a tournament, and if Mike Panozzo has zero chance to ever upset any of the other 3 of us, why would he play, but how can he play? How can he financially support himself to be able to give himself the bullets to get better?
But should the game be geared towards making it easier for the lesser players? And that's just a question. I don't know. Should it be geared towards making it easier?
Or should they be pushed to get to a different level?
I'm with you, Nate. I see what you're saying.
In the winter break format, right? The lesser player still has to break and run 4, right? And if they don't hold serve, then the better player theoretically is going to come in with winter break. Why can't they take control of the match if they have winter break and the break is that easy? It's still up to you to win the match. I mean, I don't care if the break is that much easier. They're still not going to break and run 2, 3, 4 against you because they're not that good of players, right? You're the better player. You should be able to break and run 3, 4, 5 with winter break. So if you're losing, to me, a lot of this comes down to, like, you had a bad match, your opponent had a good match, and you have sour grapes, and you want to blame something that you can point at that makes it not your fault for playing bad. And at the end of the day, like, if they were breaking and running 4, 5, 6 like, let's put it, which is the big upset that you remember?
I'm not going to say
I'm
because
not
I can't remember the guy's name, and I should know it. Sorry.
Okay, so going back, can you go back to that match and think, did they break and run seven racks against whoever they beat?
He ran 7, yeah.
He broke and ran 7?
He ran 7, yeah. Luke Garland, and it was against one of the Co-brothers. Luke Garland. Now, Luke's a guy from the UK, unbelievably solid player. I think he used to play a bit of snooker and stuff. Really solid player. But he's playing one of the Co's, can't remember which one, the shorter one. Now,
the shorter one.
Luke being a great player, dipping his toe in the pro game, one of the Co's been in the pro game for God knows how long and won God knows how much, do you not think that's too much of a leveler? Luke played great. He played great.
I absolutely don't, because you'll even see this in golf and tennis every now and then where, a big upset will happen to Serena Williams. And instead of saying, all right, well, now we should make the tennis court smaller because Serena Williams should never lose to an amateur, or, the golf, some.
But that's not an option in tennis. That's not an option in tennis. For some reason, we've got all these mad options in pool for some reason.
Yeah, there are.
I can't argue with that.
That's a very good point, Chris.
Well, that's probably because the other sports, they don't look at these things as problems. They celebrate them, right? They find ways to make it marketing genius, right? Well, go back to snooker. Like, what was that great snooker player who lost to an amateur and got all pissed off and threw this like temper tantrum on Facebook saying that amateurs shouldn't be allowed to play with the pros?
That was last year.
Yeah, it was
Sean Murphy.
Sean Murphy, yes. So instead of snooker being all right, well, let's kick out all the amateurs, they say, you're a professional player, act like it. Don't lose to an amateur, right? And honestly, like, I'm looking at the same way with pool. Like, if one of the Co-brothers loses to basically an amateur player, we shouldn't, then turn around and change the rules of pool so that the pros have a better chance of winning. We should tell them to get over it and stop losing to amateur players, right?
Can I complicate this? I'll complicate this even more, just really, really quickly.
Okay.
At the tournaments, the matchroom events, you're having people coming in and racking. Everyone's spoken about it ad nauseum. But if you get a bad rack, everybody's relying on that corner ball going in, right? That's the way that break works. Everybody's relying on it. If you get a bad rack, that corner ball doesn't go in. Well, you're not trying to make anything else. It's not like if you're using if you're using 9 on the spot and you're trying to cut the one ball in the middle, you're never going to get a bad rack where it doesn't go in the middle, really, are you? So, the bad rack, the dud rack, whatever you want to call it, with the one on the spot is massively costly. And I've seen that happen to a few players as well.
Yeah, what I noticed in this last event was especially in 9-ball too. This is a definite factor, is that you can make balls on the break every time. If you can't see the 1-ball, that whole rack changes. Now you got to go into a defensive mode to start with, and now everything is different. I mean, you got to get a look at that 1-ball. That was one of the reasons the U.S. team lost. How many times did they break? 4 times, and they only got to look at the 1-ball 1 time. In that match. Other than that, they were kicking, they were pushing out, or trying to play safe off the 1-ball. And the Singapore team got a good look at the 1-ball when they ran that break and run, that 4. They had a good look at the 1 every time on those racks. So that's a factor too, and that's a little bit of luck. I mean, when you're randomly racking the balls, putting them in different places, it's not like the 10-ball rack where you can break, and if they're all racked in exactly the same spot, you know where they're going to go. Pretty much, right, Nate?
For the most part. I mean, at the end of the day, another advantage that the pros are going to have, the top pros that are going to have, is they are so good at controlling that 1-ball off the break. So they're making that wing ball. They're trying to get that 1-ball, just below the side pocket, to then go up to the top right, go off of 2 cushions, and hang out somewhere in that top right corner, or top left-hand corner if they're breaking from the other side. I mean, the amateur players aren't going to be able to hit that rack that good either. So you already have so many advantages to the better player just because how much more significantly skilled they are. I just don't see why we have to take another thing that gives amateurs any sort of shot against beating these top players and eliminate it. I don't see how we're not getting enough chalk already that we need to add to the rules so that we get more chalk. And Chris, to be honest, coming from you, this is like really surprising because you're in that second tier of players or third tier of players that, if you put the match of your life together, you can beat Joshua Filler. Now, are you going to be able to do that if the break is even harder for you?
But I've got no interest in taking the easy way out in anything. That's not. I'm for making it all tougher. Make the pockets tougher. That's going to suit me. Probably not all the others. But if I'm in the third tier of players, make the pockets tighter. I'm going to be cool with that. There's a lot of third tier players that are not going to be cool with that. Make the break harder. I'll wet the break out. Just different bits and pieces. I've got no fear of that. And if there are people in the third tier of players that have got fear of that, then these big events aren't the events for them. Come and play in one a year, but you're probably not going to stomach it for the entire season, is what I'd say.
Yeah.
So how do you get from the third tier to the second tier then? Don't you create
hard work?
Don't you create this desert between?
Keep going to tournaments.
If you're going to these tournaments and the break is too tough and the pockets are too tight, to the point where you literally have zero chance of cashing.
You make it sound like putting the 9 on the spot's going to mean nobody can make a ball anymore.
Yeah, it's not.
I think you're overemphasizing the difference. They're trying to tweak. They're making the pocket a little smaller, trying to make the break a little bit tougher. They're not trying to make it impossible for an amateur to make a ball on the break anymore. They're just making it a little, increasing the level to where everybody says, okay, this is really good pool, and now let's just be consistent and stick with it. That's all I want out of it. So sure. I don't think that we're eliminating amateurs from play by moving the 9-ball to the spot.
I'm not saying that either. But the point of doing that is to give the better players a bigger advantage who have that breakdown better than the amateur players. But that's the point of doing
instead
it.
Of saying
I don't think it makes the better player better. I think it just makes the game more competitive.
Period. You're going to make more better players.
It makes the game. It increases the level.
How does it make it more competitive?
By increasing the difficulty of play.
So it's going to separate the absolute best players from the players who can't make a ball in the break. You're not making it more competitive. You're separating out into different categories.
If you want to be one of the best players, you want to make a ball in the break. I mean, I don't like catering to people who are trying to get to the top. I want to cater to the people who are at the top. And if you want to get there, you're going to have to work your ass off. And you're going to have to show some real special talent because these guys at the top have done that. That's what every sport wants to do.
The Euro Tour uses this break, and it's used it forever, as far as I'm aware. Now the pockets are quite generous, but I can guarantee I can guarantee you there are guys that have won Euro Tours even in the last 5 years that you've probably never heard of, or 10 years definitely. There'll be guys in there. I was talking to a friend the other day in Holland. He told me there was a guy in the Netherlands who I've met once or twice. Told me he'd won 2 Euro Tours. I didn't know that, but there are guys that you've never heard of that have won Euro Tours. Believe me, and that's what they use.
Well, these pockets on this last tournament, what I did notice was that if you're at I'll say an 8 diamond angle across the table, that's from one corner to the opposite corner, that particular angle, or in that area, then the size of the pocket seemed to make a difference. In other words, if you weren't in the center, you're not going to make it. If you touch either the left or right side of that corner pocket, you're not going to make it. But if you're at almost a straight in angle, if you're over by the rail, the cue ball and the object ball, I can't count the times I saw Shane hit that object ball at least 2 or 3 inches up the rail on a real easy shot and a right speed. That ball still went in. I'm looking at it going, how did that go in? How did that go in? These pockets are supposed to be so tight. Well, they're only tight at that open angle if you nip that corner of that pocket. And that's the balls I saw missed in the whole event. All the game matches that I watched, the balls I saw missed were never at that straight down the rail angle. They were always at that more diagonal type angle where the pocket's wide, but you don't hit the center of the pocket.
Well, not only that, it depends whether or not you're taking that shot on day 1 or whether you're taking that shot on day 6.
Well, that's a factor, too.
Yeah. But let me ask you this question, Chris and Mike, because you guys kind of push back. Do you think that Shane's comeback against Mika Eminen it's possible with 1 on the spot or 9 on the spot, 9 on the spot, breaking winner break? Do you think that comeback is even possible?
Well, there's 2 ways to look at it. If it's like that, maybe Mika doesn't have a 9-game lead. So I mean, it affects both players if you're tightening up, right? So would the comeback have been impossible? No. Would you have gotten that big a lead? Probably not.
Yeah. I think you'd have to have years and years
Sorry, I had to do that.
to look at
Yeah.
to answer that question.
I mean, that lead will still happen, right? I mean, it's still possible for that thing to happen. I just don't know that. I don't know that you can put enough together. And I think that's one of the fun parts about the one on the spot for me is that no lead is really safe with winner break one on the spot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the fun of that. Like,
It is.
You can be up 7-1 in a race to 9, and you're never safe. You always have to play. You always have to play tight. You always have to play. Like every mistake can be your last one. I mean, I like the idea. I like the idea of that. How many times did it happen? Am I wrong in saying that Niels was down like 7-2 in the World Championships and won like 7 straight?
FSR as well. He was 6-0 down, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was 6-0 down, and I mean that.
Look, Nate, let me ask you this, Nate. Right, if the break is universally agreed is the most important shot in pool, should it not have the highest skill, as high a skill rating as possible, or tariff for that shot?
Ding, ding, ding.
A good question, Chris.
No, I think that's a good point.
I don't agree.
No.
Is it the most important shot in pool?
No, I do. Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Okay,
but
No,
that doesn't.
Shot you miss is the most important.
But I don't see how that automatically leads to, because it's the hardest, you have to then make it the hardest.
But we're not making it the hardest. You can put it. You can make it harder.
The most important shot. I got my words. Just because it's the most important shot, that doesn't then lead to me saying, oh, all right, well, since it's the most important, we have to make it the most difficult as well.
But should you be guaranteed a ball? Should you be guaranteed a ball on the break?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is the break dry percentage was 15% for this event. I don't see how that is. Like, and of course, I would like to see the stats with players over, let's say, 730 Fargo, because it's very, very, very possible. And if I was diligent, I would go back and I would actually look at all these breaks and see, where the misses came from and all this. But I just don't. Just because it's the most important does not mean to me immediately that we have to make it the hardest as well. I see what you're saying, and it's it's a nice idea, but I think if you really sober-mindedly look at that, I don't think that you have to say that just because it's the most important. It's
put weights on.
Now with that,
James Walton, that comment was really good.
I mean, Neight Tam said it well too. Well, if we got to make it harder, why don't we say that you have to bridge your hand off the bottom rail then too? I mean, where does it end up stopping? Because eventually these players
break box.
I don't care. I don't really care where it stops either. But I just want them to do something that the majority of the top players, say the top 64, can agree. Okay, now this is legit tough, and then just do it for the rest of the time. That's all I want out of this. I don't really care whether it's
I agree with that.
Box, put the 9 on the spot, put the orange 5 on the spot, do whatever you want. But, get it to a point where everybody says, okay, we've got the game. We'll all agree right now the game's where we want it, and we're not going to touch it for 10 years. Moratorium. And just go with it. Just so consistently from one event to another, I'm watching the same freaking game. That's all I want.
Well,
you'd get a good reading after 10 years if that was the case.
Yeah.
And this goes to part of the reason why I push back on this so hard when the players do this is I have 2 big points. One, I think it should be as close as possible to the way that the amateurs play the game. Like, and by amateurs, I'm not talking like me and Rob and, ball bangers on a Friday night at their local APA. I'm talking about like the people who literally play pool 3 times a year, and they know the rules of 9-ball, and they know that you put the 9 on the spot, and they know, or the 1 on the spot, and they know that they put the 9 in the middle, and that's the only thing that they know about the game. If you start changing all that stuff up, now these people who play pool 2, 3, 4 times a year are fundamentally not understanding the way that the game is played. And if you get to that point, I think that that's a big potential roadblock to people getting involved with it. Now, you can agree with that or disagree with it. There's plenty of debate that can be had on that. I think that we should be playing. Go ahead.
I think it's a good point that you want everybody to be, playing the same game that you're playing. You want the conditions to be more difficult, like in golf. Everybody's playing the same game at the top level. The conditions are just more difficult. So pool, you'd like everybody to be playing the same game, but the conditions more difficult. The other argument to that is though that over time, if you change the game to this, and this is what it is with the pros from now till the end of time, eventually the person who learns how to play pool is going to learn that 9 balls played with the 9 on the spot.
Well, then here's what we should do with pool. You just put a great big fan in one corner, and about every third rack, you just turn it on high.
So I think we can play Filipino style.
You can't slow roll that ball because the wind will blow it off.
We can throw some chickens and some cats in the arena. Build up those barriers. Let's build them up a little bit higher. Make it
the geese and the ducks walking around the golf course.
We'll throw some cats and some chickens in there. Let them run around. I think that could be fun. I think we're onto something here. Oh, and then my second point. So my second point, my first point is that I think we should make it as close to the ball bangers Friday night every now and then. I think we should make the game as close to that as possible. And then secondly, you said one thing that kind of struck home with me. Like you're like, if you ask the top 64 players what they want, well, the top
64 answers,
huh?
64 answers probably.
Well, no, to be honest with you, I think you're going to get a lot of different ones. But I think as a general consensus, I bet that you would actually get that they want the 9 on the spot.
Okay.
But that's because they think that that's going to advantage them. If you take an average poll, so if you just take 64, or if you just take, let's just say you take 16 players out of a 512 field or a 256 field, you take 16 players randomly from the UK Open and you ask them, I think that you're going to get your better players want the 1 on the 9 on the spot, and your more average players are going to want the 1 on the spot. And I think
you're 100% right, and that's why I think you favor those top players and say, okay, let's make the game tough. If you guys think this is the toughest, let's make it that way and go forward.
Yeah.
You were talking about you want everybody to play the same game. What's the most universally played pool game in the world? 8 ball. They all play by the same rules?
Oh no.
I mean, come on.
Everybody,
you want to get into some ridiculous rule differentiation. So again,
right
I just want to see the top level play what they consider to be top level pool on top level conditions, and just go with it. Like I said, my main thing is,
Mike, I got to push
make
back
a decision and live with it.
I gotta push back on you because sure, 8 ball is the most widely played game, but we're not talking about we're talking about fundamentally the way the game is not only played but understood. That's like taking the 8 ball rack and putting the 8 ball on the spot, right? We're not talking about a simple rule change within the game, whether it's 8 ball last pocket or you can't play caroms off balls without calling it. We're talking about fundamental changes to the game itself. Nobody wants to put the 8 ball on the spot, right?
I've been arguing for that for years.
The 8 ball on the spot?
Yeah. Jesus.
Well,
I thought you knew me a little better than that. No, actually, it's a good point. But again, I'll just keep going back to it. Just find something. If you want the top players to quit bitching, make them all agree to something, then make them sign a paper that says, okay, you guys do this. We'll never argue. We won't argue about it for 10 years.
Right.
And let's go. Let's go. And then I'm happy. Just give me some consistency.
Yeah. I think
there's nothing wrong with consistency. That's in the rules.
Everybody should have to wear a beekeeper's outfit with the ass weights, and then we'll find out who the true players are.
Earl.
Yeah, you go to an 8 ball tournament here in the States, the first thing you got to ask, well, what rules are we playing by today?
Yeah, right. All right. Well, let's leave that there, I guess. Let's move on and talk about, is there anything else we want to talk about for the World Cup? I think we nailed it pretty well. Okay, so let's move on to the Germany Open. Is it possible to beat Kelly Fisher?
No. And I said, I think when we were up there, I'll say it again. I think that she's a phenomenal player. But the level of play, particularly because the Asian women are not able to play right now, or we're not able to play in Asia, or whatever the issue is, the level of play just isn't that high with the women right now. No offense to the ladies, but the European players are a little bit better, but they still don't have a chance against Kelly. The American players have virtually no chance against Kelly. So, she wins as long as she wants to win until the world opens up. And there's enough tournaments for the Chinese and Taiwanese and Filipino women players to go play in to start pushing her a little bit, because she's just not even really getting pushed now. She got pushed in the final of the last event, but
who was the lady from Norway that I watched her play last year here in the States?
Lena,
and
probably.
Lena, and I was very much impressed with her game. But
Lena Shorsvik? Lena Shorsvik?
Yeah, she was from Norway. I know.
I don't actually know what her last name is.
I don't either, but
Shorsvik.
Yeah. Well, she's been around for a long time. I mean, she's a great player.
No, I haven't seen her lately or anything on any event. She must not go to many.
I think she had some health issues.
Oh,
I think she did.
Because I thought by watching her up close and personal, I was at the event that she was playing in over here in the States, and I was really impressed with the way she pocketed balls.
She's got a great game. She's got a great game. A lot of I'm not trying to say that women can't make balls. There are a lot of really good players. It's just the drop off from number one to everyone else is it's more significant now than it's been in women's pool in 25 years.
Yeah.
There's 3 women's players who I think in the entire world right now that are playing that can compete with Kelly, and it's Allison, it is Alul Kabaroglu, and it is Jasmine. I mean, outside of that, I mean, a girl could take a set off of her, but I can't imagine a situation where even Jennifer Beretta beats her in a match. If it's a long match, the Predator series, I could see them winning a race to 4, but maybe if you could beat him in a race to 4, you can get him in the shootout. But as we just saw, Kelly beat Alul, was it 9-8 in the shootout? I mean, Kelly just doesn't miss that much. She's like, it's sick.
And she was pushed all the way in the final. It's good to see. But Kelly is probably, she's a legit professional pool player, right?
Sure.
A legitimate professional. Jasmine is as well, but I think Jasmine just released a book and then she's on TV like every other week in Austria doing loads
she just doesn't seem to be like in the game as much now.
Kelly is like a legit pool player. She's in the top 10 on the AZB money list now, which is awesome for the women's game to have anybody up that high. You used to have big tournaments
because they wouldn't do this without Predator. There's no way.
It's true. True. So it's good, and she really is kind of blazing a trail now. You can't see anyone beating her. I don't know how many more Predator events are left before the end of the year, but she might break the 100 grand barrier, which again would be unbelievable. Legit winnings in pool, 100K for the year. That's brilliant for the women's game.
I think she easily will, right? Because there's still, there's still going to be the Austrian Open. There's still the Michigan Open. There's still
Canada.
The Canada, Puerto Rico. She's playing at the Ashton Twins Classic this week. I could see her adding.
I think they already gave her first prize, and they're just going to the bar.
Yeah, they're just going to play out for second place.
Exactly.
But no, I mean, like, I don't. Let's see, what is her actual money rankings at?
60K.
You know what it is up?
60K. She's like $100 behind Albin, so she's nearly in ninth place.
She'll end up probably 130. Some would probably be my guess. There's still at least 5 Predator events for her to play, and I'm sure she'll win 4 of them, if not all of them. Each one of those is 10,000 guaranteed.
And she's over 40 too. I mean, it's not like she's a 28-year-old, 30-year-old hitting her stride. She's over 40, so she's in that back half of her career, and she's just dominating. And to me, again, it's almost to I'm amazed by her, and I love her to death. But it's disappointing to me that the women's game is not more competitive right now than it is.
It'll come for sure. When the Asian ladies come back into some of those events, no, don't get me wrong. Some of the men's events are terrible to watch at the beginning in the early stages. Some of the ladies' events are, they're not great to watch. But legitimately, when some of the Asian ladies come back into the tail end of those Predator events or any ladies' event, are going to be as close to top level as you ever seen from ladies' events, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really anxious to see because I don't know if they're playing in Asia, during this time or not, or whether they're all playing Chinese 8 ball or what they're doing. What's the Simming Chen doing right now? What are these women playing right now? I don't know. I'd love to see them play again. I haven't heard of any kind of like China Open or Amway Cup or anything like that where women from the West would be going over to Asia to play. I'd like to learn a little bit more about it, to be honest with you.
Where's Rublin at? Why
she won? She won in the SEA Games. She won a couple medals in the SEA Games.
Why won't she leave the Philippines? I mean, you want to talk about like, because if you're putting her and Kelly up against each other, you're not taking Kelly. She is like a special women's player. Like she might be one of the only women player in the world that can hang with Simming Chen outside of China.
Yeah, Rublin's great.
Yeah,
she's great. And she, like I said, she did really well in the SEA Games, so the Southeast Asian Games. So she's playing well. It's unfortunate that that we're not getting more of those those solid international fields.
I have to assume that she can't get out of the Philippines because why would you not want to be chasing these $10,000 purses?
Yeah, I think there's problems with visas getting out of the Philippines at the minute, isn't there?
Yeah, I think Filipino players are a little worried about coming to the U.S. these days in general. Going to Europe, this to the U.S.
This was Germany, right? Why wouldn't she chase that? And has she ever been to the States? I guess maybe I don't know. I don't remember her ever actually being in the States. Maybe she. Did anybody know?
Has she played in the States? That's a really good question. I don't remember ever being in a tournament that she was at in the States. She might not just like coming over here. Who knows?
Maybe she doesn't like our food. Maybe she doesn't like us.
Maybe it's just
possible. It could just be you.
Well, I said us. It's just... All right, so we're going to have to go with 3 people the rest of the show.
Out he goes.
I've never looked better.
That joke never gets old, I tell you what.
No, it really doesn't. It really doesn't.
So,
I like Greg's comment here. Pool and billiards is one of the few sports you can play at the top level well into the later.
Yeah, listen, I'm not shortchanging Kelly Fisher. Being over 40 doesn't mean you got one foot in the grave in pool, but it gets a little bit tougher to win when younger players are reaching these really high levels. As you see,
but we're seeing this in all sports. We're seeing this in all sports now. Like, I mean, how like I'm a huge Rafael Nadal fan. Like he is my favorite, and I've loved nothing more than to watch him beat up on Djokovic for like the last basically 6 months. Like it's made me so happy. But I mean, even if you look at him, he's 39 years old, I believe. I think Djokovic is 37 or 38. I mean, you're talking about like this is literally dinosaurs when it comes to tennis. I mean that's
a rough sport on your body to be playing at 40 at that level,
especially the way Rafael Nadal plays. But like you're talking, I mean, you're looking at the basketball. I mean, whatever you want to say about LeBron James, you cannot argue the fact that he's at now 30. Again, I think he's 37 or 38 years old, and he's still playing as maybe the best player in the world. We're seeing Tiger Woods,
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady is a perfect example.
Ronaldo.
We're seeing all of. Yeah,
we're seeing all you just pulled out like 5 generational talents out of there. So
that's true.
It's easy Kelly to go is Kelly not a generational talent too? But like, I get what you're saying.
She is. I just don't know that we're seeing her pushed right now like I'd like to see her pushed because I'd like to see her game,
for sure.
At its very, very top level, and you can't argue that that the levels below her are anywhere near where they were 10 years ago.
She'll be ready though. When everybody comes back in, she'll be ready.
Oh yeah.
It'll be something worth watching.
Does this push her to want to play more of the open events? I mean, doesn't she wants to push herself? I'm sure, right?
She plays in a lot of them already.
Yeah.
I mean, she played the UK Open. I mean, she didn't have a great tournament, but I think she lost to. I don't remember who she lost on the A side, but I think she lost to Tyler Steyer on the B side. Yeah, Mika and Tyler Steyer. I mean.
She lost to Mika on the hill, I think. And I think she was unlucky in that rack, I think. But yeah, she's a great player. She can beat any of the... You wouldn't be surprised to see her beat any of the men.
Yeah, well, I think Sam kind of nailed it. I think sports science is, it's come a long ways, and it's allowing you to survive deeper into your career than you could have 30 years ago. But all those
I definitely
generations,
see
players were so much more interesting when they smoked and drank.
Yeah,
I mean, let's face it. Alex
they're so much more
Higgins,
animated.
Mickey Mantle, guys, those were real
Right.
people.
Yeah, they were.
who's the John Daly of pool?
John Daly of pool.
Do we have one?
No, Billy.
Oh, might be Billy.
It might be.
To be honest, it might be Billy. Yeah.
I don't know. You hear some crazy things.
Well, there was a
Definitely
comment here about
you hear some
age.
crazy things.
And
Well, are we
this,
going
of
to talk
course,
about Billy?
is something I can relate to, the age factor in pool, where you really, really notice in a lot of the other sports I've played, like especially bowling. And
Everybody's just saying, yeah, Billy.
yeah, Billy. But there's a cushion player that I played against now this last couple of years who's a national champion, and he's over 77 now and still plays at well over a 1 average in three cushion. That's Frankie Torres, a U.S. national champion, 4 or 5 time national champion, and he's pushing close to 80. And I just played him not too long ago, and he's playing great. It's really fun to watch.
Well, let's give a little bit of shine to here's the shine. I know the guy. I guess I know very, very loosely the guy who won the men's, and I'm blanking on his name now.
Demetrius Lukassis.
Yeah. Maybe he's like the 4th or 5th best Greek player. I would say maybe 3rd. What do you think? He's not Alex, and I don't know that he's Nikos.
No. Look, they had less than 100 runners in the event, but the guy's turned up there. He's beat Zielinski, who's one of the hottest properties in pool. He's cut up and coming. Beating that guy in the final of anything can't diminish that. I'm not sure how the semis went. I think Lukassis might have beaten Suke in the semis. So semis or quarters, maybe.
It's super hard to find out because you can't find brackets online, and when you can, it's in German. So
right, yeah. So I think it was the semis. Lukassis played Suke, and that went to a shootout. And
right, I think you're right. Yeah.
But yeah, can't take anything away from him. What he's done is great. I saw a video maybe today or yesterday. Alex waited at the airport for him. Alex Kazakis waited at the airport for him.
Oh, really?
Which was great. Met his friend coming back with his trophy and stuff. So fair play to the guy. Nice little payday, 20K.
That'll great. Good for him.
Pay for his expenses for the rest of the season, no doubt. So good on him. It's great to see.
Yeah. And now I got it here. Yeah, it's we got Demetrius. It beats Victor Zielinski in the finals. We got Jean Salim and Akdad Ramazan from Turkey. I've never actually seen that name before.
No.
Nope. Chris, you haven't either.
Chan Salim, I've heard of him before. Yeah. German, right?
Yeah, he's German. He spends a lot of time actually around our area in Wisconsin. Yeah. He's got a backer. Okay. I think he stays actually either in Beloit or Chicago with one of his stake horses. Sanjin Pelovanovic, that's actually kind of an unlucky draw for him. He had to play Victor Zielinski in the quarterfinals. That's I would say of this field, that's probably the finals, but they played it in the quarters. Sufi Mohammed, Ralph Suke, Van Vanjan are the quarterfinalists, so pretty good. Still, it's still had a pretty decent field in it. Obviously, they're losing a lot of players to the World Cup, but how is it that Sanjin Pelovanovic is not in the World Cup of pool? Can somebody explain that to me? How does this country not get a bid?
They mightn't even have a second player. They might not have a second player in the matchroom rankings.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Morocco didn't have one player.
Oh well, I don't know if that's true or not. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the reason was for some countries getting picked and some not getting picked.
No, Morocco literally had a 575 Fargo on their team or something like that. It was below 600 Fargo.
I don't know if both of those guys have played in a matchroom event or not. But in terms of, I think what Mike's getting at in terms of coverage, having a North African team in there is pretty good.
Yeah, it's just not sure exactly how they decided what countries to pick and what not. But
I think
Sanjin would have been an obvious pick, but
you want to talk about like one of the, he's playing some pretty awesome pool right now too. Okay, well let's move on from this. Let's talk about Billy. Mike, I think you're a little bit more plugged into the finer details of this. You want to give the outline?
Well, I mean, I saw something here. Billy's band comes out almost 2 years later. It was really about 9 months.
About a one.
Yeah, not even one. It was July, right?
One.
Last July was the World 10 Ball. Yeah, pretty sure.
No. It's been over a year. No, because I was in Las Vegas, and it was definitely not July. I think
April.
It was April. Yeah, I think it was
April of last year was the World. Okay,
yeah.
So it was a year.
A little over a year.
Yeah. There's been a lot of discussion about, WPA did Billy wrong. WPA, because of its affiliation with the IOC, has to follow certain guidelines. At WPA events, there has to be random drug testing. That's overseen by a group called WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency.
And that is, if you don't mind, that is, I believe, 25% randomly of the money, right? Is generally how they enforce that.
It's different for different sports. I mean, the pool came up with a stipulation for its events based on, I think, as much as anything, how much they could afford in testing. There's some sports where they test a lot more than that. So, so what they decided to do was you take, when you get down to the final 16 or 32, whatever it is, they do a random pick, and then as soon as that player gets knocked out of the tournament, he has to test, right? So Billy tested positive for THC. The group that tested him was out of Poland, a drug doping company that I'm assuming WADA has contracts with countries around the world, or companies around the world, to do the drug testing. And again, WPA likely uses this Polish group because of cost. Who knows? But the results the samples go to them. They do all sorts of sports. They suffered through COVID like everyone else. I'm assuming that everything took longer. A year seems a little bit ridiculous. But where I'm kind of lost on this is, so now they just came out with the announcement that Billy's punished for 3 months. And I did ask the president of the WPA, was this kind of a short punishment because of what we would term as time served? And he said no, that 3 months would be what it would be for something that's not considered performance enhancing, but it's still on their banned list. Okay. Now, when Billy got tagged last year and it came out that he was positive, word went around immediately from everyone that he was banned for 2 years. I'm really curious about where this came from, because WPA never told Billy that. WADA never told Billy that. So I'm not sure where this came from. And all of a sudden he couldn't play in matchroom events. As far as I know, he could have played in any event he wanted to until the actual punishment came in. Now that would have been at his risk, because, if you get the call in the middle of an event, you're out. It's obvious, if I was matchroom, I would have never let him into the Moscone Cup, because if the call came in during the middle of the Moscone Cup, that would have screwed that event, right? So, but go ahead.
It came out of the stands and played so bad.
So, so I don't know why he, who told him he couldn't play in the meantime, or if there's stipulations they can't play in the meantime. What I know now is that he's banned until August 31st. 3 months doesn't seem like that huge a ban. Waiting a year to find out, that's something that I think, the WPA should work on some kind of agreement with the players as a group to say, okay, you have to go through this testing, and we can't control the testing. We're going to have to pick guys. You're going to have to get tested, but we'll set out some guidelines on what's reasonable. Okay, if WADA takes more than 6 months to get back to you, you can play in events until they come out with punishment. Something they can do a little better job of advocating on behalf of their players as well. But the WPA people have nothing to do with WADA's decisions, how long it takes them, anything like that. That's completely out of their hands. And they can't cut out WADA because then they're falling out of favor with the IOC. So it's a tough situation. But I mean, that's to the best of my knowledge, that's how this all went down.
Well, I don't think that absolves them from any of the blame, though, either. So
Absolves who?
The WPA, because of it, like you're saying, they had nothing to do with the WADA decision. I mean, you can apply pressure, right? You could tell them to hurry up. You could do things to speed up their process, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to have to take the public backlash from them not making a decision, right? So I get what you're saying when it comes down to like WADA has to make the decision, but the buck has to stop with the WPA no matter what.
I mean, it could be like when you hire a tradesman for your house, you don't pay them until the work's done. They'll get the work done in a hurry.
WADA don't make the decision on the ban, though, right?
I'm sorry.
WADA, they don't make the decision on the ban.
Yes,
they do make the decision.
Yes, they come up with the penalty, not the WPA.
So the precedent for somebody being caught with THC, it must have happened hundreds of times before. So the precedent.
You would assume so. That's a good question, Chris. I thought the
Yeah.
same thing. It's like, okay, wouldn't we have known this ahead of time, that it's probably like a 3-month deal instead of a 2-year thing? Again, I don't know where all this, Billy got tested positive and he's out for 2 years. I'm not sure where that started and who was the benchmark for that. I never did find out.
I don't think it's going to have any bearing
What if
on Billy.
What if he was, say, on some pain meds, and he had a prescription from a doctor for some pain meds because he has back issues, and he tests positive for this opiate-based pain med, and what would be the difference with that and getting a script like Mr. Walton says here on the in the chat?
I don't know whether that's a WADA decision or whether that's something the WPA can influence in terms of what constitutes what. Because I mean, listen, if they're like, if you have a prescription, you can take beta blockers. Forget it. How tough is that for anybody in sports to get a doctor to give them a prescription for a beta blocker or something like that? So there's you just open it up way too much when you start doing that now, and that's what they're supposed to do, is look at each of these situations and say, okay, well, this athlete clearly didn't know that this was in this medicine that they were taking because of this prescription, whatever the case is. But right? it's a fine line. I wouldn't want to be the one trying to make those decisions.
I do know that if you have a medical card, that medical marijuana does not affect, like, you can't get banned for having medical marijuana if you have a card for it.
Therapeutic use
sporting events.
Yeah.
In sporting events?
Yeah, therapeutic use exemptions. You can get it for all sorts of things. You can get it for testosterone replacement therapy. You can get it for all sorts of things across all sports. But you do need to have a signed off by a doctor.
I would have to look in a little more what WADA's require. I mean, you can go online and get all of their lists of banned substances.
I know a top player who has that exemption and regularly uses that and has zero ramifications for it. Like it is a thing. I'm not like speculating. It is.
I'm sure it is. I'm curious as to what the boundaries are.
Yeah, me too.
Say, right? Yeah. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Good choice of words, Nate.
No, that's I mean, at the end of the day, I think if we can just take a step back and just look at 3 months, do we think that's enough? Not enough? Too much?
It is.
What do you think?
No, I think that's fine. What bothers me is that no one really seems to know what this whole year in between was about, and whether or not he could have played, because he played in the World Championship and he played in the UK Open, right? So it's obvious that he could play while he was still under investigation, quote, or at least he went ahead and did it anyways. So I don't know. I really need to find out a little bit more about what the, what the rules are on what you can do. Do you know, Chris?
I'm not 100% sure, but what I would say is, as long as there wasn't an email from WADA sitting in a WPA email address junk email folder for the last year.
I asked them about that too, and they said that WADA contacts the player first, not the association. Because I was curious about the same thing.
Yeah. Look, he hasn't really done anything. He hasn't done anything terrible. I don't think anybody should think any worse of him for it.
Yeah, no,
all,
he's not
you know,
Ben
it's
Johnson.
just
He's not,
yeah.
I mean, he's not, fighting people.
No, can't harm anyone. And
Yeah, to me, that's a bigger deal than the pot.
all joking aside, I mean, if he deserved 3 months for anything, it's for the Rob Sias incident. I don't think he deserves anything for this.
Rob's thing. Yeah.
This is coming. I don't smoke weed. Like I have no interest in it. I'm not interested. I want to drink all the wine in the world. I have zero interest in smoking weed. But if you're gonna tell me that smoking weed is like,
so listen, pot is this WADA encompasses virtually every international sport there is, which is played in every country there is. Okay, pot is looked at differently by different sports. It's looked at differently by different countries. You're throwing an awfully big net around this thing right now, right? So you have to come up with some rules that you can live by for everybody. So for us in the U.S., for someone smoking pot, should they be kicked out of a tournament? No,
when it's legal in 13 states. I mean,
well, let me ask you this,
Robin, about the whole world.
Yeah, Robin,
some
Chris,
countries that get killed.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Robin, Chris. What would be the benefits? Are there benefits to smoking weed while you're competing?
Emotional benefits, yeah.
Oh God, I completely disagree. I've tried a couple of times and it is not for me.
No, I know players that cannot lift a pool cue up. And
good players?
They're decent players.
Yes,
they're 700 Fargos.
Okay.
And they smoke some pot. And they can't even shoot a ball in. And then I know some 650 players that can smoke a little pot. They relax. They get calmer. And all of a sudden they're potting balls like a 700.
It's like people who always say I shoot better when I have a couple of drinks. Or we talked about beta blockers before.
Exactly.
That was the big thing at the very beginning of the doping thing. There were snooker players who used to take beta blockers because it calms them down during an event. And so that's when they started coming up with all these rules. And again, it's a broad net to try to cover all sports all around the world. So you have to come up with these set rules. Pot's on the list. Just get over it, get used to it.
Yeah.
I talked to some old-time straight pool players from the old days, Willie Mosconi days. These were players that played with him. And I asked them, what do you do for your nerves? Because there was no rules back then about drugs or anything else. Back in that day, they didn't test people for drugs back in these national straight pool championships and things. And by and large, the majority of these players said, I have a little half pint in my sports coat pocket. And when I'm not at the table, I take a little nip of that.
Yeah.
Every now and
there
then.
was a snooker player, and Chris, I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy named Bill Werbiniak.
Yeah, Bill Werbiniak.
In the old days, he had a prescription, he argued, to be able to drink, and he looked just like you right now, Chris. He could drink beer into professional snooker events at the table. And he had pint glasses like that, and he would go through a dozen of them in a snooker match, and he had the okay from his doctor to do it.
Yeah, he said he couldn't play with like 10 pints, which is just, he couldn't play without having 10 pints first, which is
crazy.
Can't stand after that.
Well, that kind of goes back to like the point I was going to make, like when asking you guys what the benefits are, because like, again, I don't smoke weed, but like the people who do tell me exactly what Mike says in the comments. It helps to settle you down. It helps to relax you. It helps to keep you in the moment.
Yeah, it's a fine line.
Well, sure. But that's the exact same reason most people end up drinking, right? They want to settle their nerves. They want to kind of calm themselves down. And, nobody drinks so that their vision gets
you're not going to smoke a half a bag and play pool. You know
They're
what I'm saying? It's like you're not going to drink a case of beer and play good pool.
Yeah, I mean, that's a side effect of, booze. Is like your vision kind of goes a little loopy, right? Nobody drinks so that their vision gets crappier. Like you're doing it to calm yourself down and settle in. So there's no and maybe I'm wrong here, Mike. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but is there a rule that says that you can't carry, literally a flask in your jacket pocket? You're down on the the match winning 9-ball in the world. Yeah, the World 9-ball Championships, and you go back and you pull out your flask and take a slam back to calm yourself down.
I'd pay money to see that.
What'd you say, Chris?
There's rules in the player agreement that you sign before each of the matchroom event. There's rules in there. They tell you what you can and cannot do. Now, obviously, it's not exhaustive because you cannot.
So is
smoke
that
a
one of
drink
the
at the
things that's on
table,
there?
but you're definitely not allowed to drink in the arena and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, you cannot drink in the arena. Okay.
You can't drink in the arena or at your match, whatever. I can't remember the words, but yeah, that's pretty much it. But
So
what I would say,
so theoretically, you could take a break in between racks and you can go and drink.
you could do, but I mean, if Emily caught you doing that, you're dead, man. I don't think that's going to go down.
Well,
very
yeah,
well.
I mean, that's a matchroom thing. It sounds like that's a matchroom rule, and
I
that's
think so.
fine. Is that the case for the World 10 ball? So let's switch it to the World 10 ball. Can you my only point is I think that there's no rule against going back and taking a drink out of a flask to calm yourself down in the moment. Are we going to argue that alcohol is better for you than weed? So if you're not going to get banned for 3 months for taking a shot of booze before a match or something like that, I just don't. The idea that you get 3 months, Billy gets 3 months for this. I mean, and again, it's like you said it perfectly, Mike. Every country looks at this different. Every tournament looks at this different. Every sport looks at this differently. But I'm of the mindset that weed is whatever, right? It's not like it's the 80s where, there's this campaign that says if you smoke weed one time, you're going to eat the face off of children, right? It's not a big deal.
No, your brain is a fried egg. That was the big one. They showed a pan with an egg frying. And then somebody smoking pot. Yeah.
I mean,
the times are changing, folks. And I think the game and the rules and the game and the criteria to play has to change with it. I just think it does. It's time to make some changes in that regard.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think
the world is changing, and you got to have rules in certain games. James makes a comment about being an athlete in here before he made a comment that you don't have to be an athlete to play pool. And I'm going to have to push back with James on that comment because you just ask Jason or ask John Schmidt or Jason Shaw about what the athletic ability there is in running 700 balls or 600 balls in straight pool. I guarantee you have to be somewhat of an athlete to do that. That just doesn't happen because you're a good shot maker.
So, yeah, I would say that that's probably a pretty good wrap up for this. We can talk very, very briefly about Tony and Chip, and very briefly because I watched none of it. I watched a little bit of, I guess I shouldn't say none of it. I watched about 2 racks that Dominic Dunn streamed to Facebook. I didn't buy the stream. I still like the Omega streams. I think that they do good work, but I don't like the commentary, and I don't want to torture myself listening to commentary that I don't want to hear for an entire weekend. So I stopped actually buying those streams, and I don't know. I still pay attention to them slightly. I think it's interesting that this is the 4th iteration of these two playing in the last year and a half, and it's now evened up at 2-2. So I don't know. I feel like they have to have a 5th match, but I don't know how you do it.
Got to be off scratch, right? Just a big one race to 35 or something off scratch over 4 days or something. If you're going to have a decider and it's going to be the ultimate decider, you got to go for it, right?
Yeah, I mean it can't be even, of course, because they just played half even, half 9-8, based off of who breaks the balls. If Tony's breaking the balls, he's giving up 9-8. If Chip's breaking the balls, they're playing even. I mean, I don't see how you do it. Maybe if Tony's break, but it's the final score was 27-25. I mean,
Chip was up after the first day. Chip was up by 5 or something after the first day.
Yes, he was.
I think it was 8-2. I think it might have been 8-2.
Okay.
I think it might have been 8-2. So,
hey, I've got a question for you guys and the fans out there too, for that matter. There was was it $100,000?
Yep, 50
for that match. Are these players independently wealthy? I mean, do they come from wealthy families? Do they just? I mean, I don't have 50. I've been working for 74 years.
You're asking how much of
$50,000 laying around.
How much of that money came out of Tony's pocket, and how much came out of Chip's pocket?
Zero.
Yeah.
Not much.
Oh, okay.
Zero. Yeah.
So it's the promoters of the event, then, more or less. that are
Backers.
putting money.
No, it's the backers. It's people who just want to gamble, you know?
Just the gamblers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, apparently it dropped from to 60,000. So I don't know. Maybe a big backer on both sides backed out at the last second.
Oh. And is that the case with a lot of these challenge matches around the country now that are
100%.
going on with
That's always been the
100,000
case.
in the middle or
That's almost-
50,000 in the middle or
That's almost always been the case.
okay.
I mean, I've seen situations where like some people, if they're playing for like 1,000 or 2,000, something like that, they'll have their own money. But even then, generally speaking, when you're doing this, when you have a backer, right? If you're in bad with them, meaning that you're down, let's say you're down 50,000. Most of the backers will say, you owe me action to get me to even. So they can't even, generally speaking, play unless they're playing on their backers' money so that they could try to get them to even. Now, if you have a good relationship with your backer and you've made them a bunch of money, it's different, I think. But for the most part, if you're playing these big matches with a backer, the backers are deciding when you're playing and how much you're playing for, usually. And you can't play action. Like, even if you're playing like $50 sets at the bar with, some schmoozy, sometimes the backers don't even let them have that action.
Yeah. It's fact.
So,
Okay.
But like I said, that comes down completely independently to how you have a relationship with your backers, where you're at money-wise with them, whether you're up or down money with them, and a bunch of other things. But it's, for the most part, the backers are the ones making the calls on just about everything, and the players nothing more than a brain and a pool cue.
Chris,
Swinging away.
1 out of 2 is not bad.
excuse me, guys. Chris, has anybody ever approached you at a professional level and said, "Hey, I want you to play this fellow over here, and I'm going to put up 25,000 for you to go and play somebody like"? Has anybody ever approached you like that?
No, I don't think there's anybody in the world that hates their money that much.
No, that's not what I was getting at.
Yeah, you sound like a hustler, Chris. I haven't picked up a cue in 6 months.
Yeah, right.
I've heard that. I've heard that before.
I stopped playing a year ago.
Well, I will say, if that ever happens, Chris, and we're in the same room, and somebody comes up to you and says, "I want you to play Nate for 25,000," you need to lose, and we'll chop them up.
I need to lose.
Oh,
Well, they're backing you. If you win,
there you
Where's
go.
your money coming from?
oh, I'm so independently wealthy.
It's not coming from me.
I own a podcast. You do not understand how much money I make doing this.
It's true.
I literally make dozens of dollars a year doing this podcast.
He's got a trunk full of Manscaped razors.
Yeah,
I'm still waiting for a check to come in the mail, and it's been 4 years for me.
Yeah. Keep waiting, buddy. You have no idea. I make dozens of dollars a year. It's insane. Yeah. So I'll back anybody that needs some backing. Good. All right. Well, that seems like a really good time to close out the podcast.
Hey, I have one more question for Chris.
I gotta go get high.
Because you're the professional here on the podcast today. So, have you had a lesson in any type of a specific aiming technique in pool or snooker or whatever?
No aiming techniques. No, although I have read through AZ Billiards some of the crazy 200-page threads on there about people talking about aiming systems, and I don't get it. I tried a little bit of something called Sight Right in the UK. I just dipped my toe in that very, very lightly.
Okay.
But no.
So you basically look at a spot on the ball that directly goes into the pocket, and that's what you shoot at.
I'd say that's probably.
You just go autopilot. Is what you do. You just get down and just settle your body into the position, right?
Yeah, aiming systems and things, they're not really in snooker and English 8-ball. They're like unheard of. I only heard about aiming systems when I started, reading forums and things for American pool, even before I started playing. So it's all foreign to me.
Okay.
Yep.
I was just curious.
The way I look at it is like, if you dedicate that much time,
you're a natural player, really self-taught.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess so.
Yeah. The way I look at it, if you dedicate like 1,000 to 5,000 hours to get really, really, really good at CTE, for example. That's a popular one. If you just dedicated that same exact time to doing exactly what everybody else did, I don't know that you have to be in a better place. Right. I mean, you'd have to set up like a study or something like that where, 50 people use CTE only and 50 people use just regular aiming systems. And they all play 5,000 hours each. And what's the Fargo rate at the beginning and what's the Fargo rate at the end of all these players, right?
Yeah.
To find out. But I just don't, to me, it doesn't seem like if you dedicate all of this time into something that's going to tell you where to aim, it still doesn't mean that your arm is going to swing your cue in a way that's going to get it to that point.
That's true. You know what I think about the aiming systems and what I've seen and the ones that I've fooled around with is it boils down to a simple pre-shot routine. What is yours going to be? Well, whatever works for you is whatever mindset you need or physical position to the table, what fits your mental structure and physical needs is a pre-shot routine, and that's what these systems boil down to for me.
Okay.
It doing the same thing every shot,
Sure.
whatever it is. It could be anything, but at least it's consistent
over the course of
mannerism
years.
for every shot.
Over the course of years, because that's
Yes.
Where you're going to get your consistency. Apparently, we're going to have to see Panozzo versus Mindham. So Panozzo, you ready to start our drinking competition? Because I know it's not about pool.
I just played a guy, and
we got 20
It'll be a
in the
cocktail
middle.
hour.
$20 in the middle. Nate against Mike.
Crap, I'm gonna need to get it back. Rob, can I borrow some money? I need to. You want to back me?
I
I'll
have
need
to ask my wife, Nate.
Yeah, I'll need at least 4 backers to come up with that scratch.
Yeah. I might need 6.
Yeah. Heading to the
All right,
BCA Expo tomorrow. You gonna be out there?
Oh, you're
Nate?
heading out there?
Yep.
No, I was not planning on it, but now that I know that you're going, can I just stow away in your luggage?
Sure.
Sweet. All right.
Meet you at Milwaukee. Meet you at General Mitchell in the morning.
Yeah. All right.
Well, fellas,
thanks, Bill.
it's been great,
Bill said a
everybody.
nice thing.
Thanks for tuning in, folks.
Oh, I guess I could say this. These jerseys, we're doing a custom order on these. So if you want to get yourself one of the Cue It Up jerseys with your your name, well, this is my sponsor for about another 14 seconds. Get the Cue It Up logo. You can get your last name on the back. You can get some sweet stuff on the sleeves, and it's all $65, completely customized out the door. So you want to get yourself a sweet.
And
Cue It
this
Up
is
jersey.
how Nate makes his living now, not the podcast. It's selling the
No,
shirts.
I make. Do you not listen to me when I talk? I make so much money doing the podcast. Dozens of dollars a year. So much. All right. So if you want one of these jerseys, reach out to the podcast, reach out to me, reach out to somebody. We'll get you hooked up with some sweet custom gear. So other than that, let's get out of here. Mike's got to go catch a flight. And
This was
Chris
a fun
says,
one, Mike. Thanks.
No more
that's
booze
fun.
left.
Thank you.
Good talking to you guys,
Chris
Chris.
needs more
Good seeing
booze.
you, buddy.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.